Today we're going to be making a rolling tray set. First, you will need a rolling tray, Dollar Tree. You will also need an ashtray, Dollar Tree. You will be taking the lid off of this and putting that to the side. We will not be using that. You will need a lighter, Dollar Tree. You will need a jar. I got my jar from Michael's. 6 came in a pack. You will need glitter. That is optional, but I will be using it. White primer. That is also optional. And then you will need color. You do not have to use the color. You can use acrylic paint. You will need epoxy. You will have to have epoxy. This will seal your paint and your image when you're done. You will need clear cups to use for your epoxy and a stirring stick. And then the only thing else you'll need is your gloves. You will have to use gloves, especially using the epoxy. You do not want to use that without gloves. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put the white primer on, and then we will go ahead and put the color on to your whole entire tray set besides the clear jar. Just the lid of the jar will get painted. Okay, so now we're going to seal the paint using epoxy. Epoxy will come with 2 bottles that we will mix together. So first thing you want to do is grab your clear cups. You're going to draw a line around the cup to show where to pour. I use this tape and I just set the marker on top of the tape and I just go ahead and draw my line with that. Now for the epoxy mix to come out perfectly and for it to work correctly, you have to pour the exact amount into each cup. So this is bottle A. Bottle A is a lot thicker than bottle B. So I always pour that one first. It will come out slower, so you will have to squeeze the bottle just a little bit to get it to come out. Okay, you want to stop right at the line. For bottle B, which is the one that's not so thick, it comes out a lot faster. So be careful to not go over your line. Okay, so once you have it both poured out into your cups, you're going to pour bottle B, or cup B I should say, into cup A. And you want to scrape out as much of the mix as you can because you want all of it or most of it that you can get into the cup so your epoxy mix comes out right. As you start stirring, it will begin to look cloudy. You will continue to stir until it is clear. So stirring it until it's clear can take about 2 to 3 minutes. So it is kind of a lengthy process. So that's why I'm just fast forwarding here so it doesn't take that long in the video. When you're done stirring, you're going to go ahead and add your glitter in. I don't have a particular way I add glitter. I just add what I feel I'm okay with. And I go ahead and stir it into the epoxy. We're going to do black glitter first, and then we will do gold. Then we'll do a little bit of red. I did actually pour way too much black glitter into my epoxy. And usually if this was for a customer, I would go ahead and make another epoxy mix, pour the epoxy into this mix, and so that way it would even itself out and it wouldn't be too much. But I just went ahead with it since it was only for video purposes. See, I'm going to add just a little bit of red into the mix. And you're going to keep stirring. Once you're done stirring, you're going to pour the glitter onto your lid. This is the lid of the jar, and you're going to turn the lid. I have my lid on cups, it's easier that way. You're going to turn and spread it across the top of the lid. Once you're done with the top of the lid, you will let it drip onto the side of the lid a little bit, and then you're just going to wipe it with your finger across the sides of the lid. You would do the same thing with the bottom and the outside of the ashtray. I added a little bit more gold glitter to kind of drown the black glitter out. Didn't really work too well, but that's what you see here. Okay, so we're going to do the same exact thing here. Going to go ahead and pour it onto the ashtray. We're going to spread that glitter epoxy around the base of the ashtray. Going to continue to spread it until it's completely covered. Once it is covered, you can start letting it drizzle down the sides, and you're going to do the same exact thing. You're just going to take your finger and you're just going to wipe around the side of the ashtray. As I do my ashtray, I do sometimes put it over the tray just in case some of the epoxy does drop. It will catch it. The tray will catch it. Since we're going to be putting epoxy on the tray, that's fine. So we're going to be doing the same exact thing we did to the lid here. Let it drizzle. Go ahead and wipe the sides down. And you can always take your finger and just rub across the top and onto the sides. But you don't want to press too hard because you don't want your epoxy on the base of your ashtray to be lumpy. So the lines you see in your ashtray, once the epoxy has set, it will flatten itself out and fill in those lines. So it will not look like that. And just spread the epoxy out some now that we're done with the sides. Okay, so now we're going to do the lighter. With the lighter, I just dip my finger into the epoxy and I just rub it all around the lighter. So be careful with this step, because if you get any epoxy on the clicker of your lighter, the lighter will not work. So please take your time on this step. In the video, it's fast forward, so it looks like I'm going fast, but I'm really not. Also, keep an eye on your ashtray because the epoxy will drizzle. And when it does, you just want to wipe the bottom of the ashtray so it does not dry and harden up that way. Then go ahead and pour your glitter onto your tray, and you're going to do the same exact thing we've been doing. Just go ahead and spread that glitter all over the tray. So usually I do the entire top of my tray with the epoxy or with the glitter epoxy, but for video purposes, I'm only going to do the base. If you want to do the entire or the top of the tray, only thing you're going to do is the same exact thing we've been doing. You're going to still spread it out, but then you're going to take your finger, you're going to wipe the epoxy, but then you would take the extra epoxy off your finger and you would go ahead and wipe your edges of the tray where you want the glitter epoxy to be. Okay, so now that you have your rolling tray set and it's all dry, you want to go ahead and add your image. So this is an image that I actually created online and I cut it out on vinyl using my Cricut machine. But if you do not have a Cricut machine, you can always print out a picture and use it. You can always go buy decals. They sell decals at the Dollar Tree, Walmart, crafting stores, even online. So go ahead and get your image, whatever you want to use as your image, and you're going to go ahead and place it here. I am using contact paper to lay out my vinyl. And as you can see, I was having a little bit of difficulty, so it took me longer than usual to lay out my image. So if you haven't noticed, on the word mouse, I am missing an E. I'm aware of that. It actually got messed up as I cut the vinyl, so I did add that in later. Okay, so now that we have the image laid down, we're just going to go ahead and fix any mistakes that we have, and we're going to move on to the rest of the tray. So you're just going to repeat the same step we just did in the last clip with putting your image onto your rolling tray set. I will be putting my Mickey Mouse image on my ashtray on the top of the jar, and then I will be putting words on the lighter and words on the outside of the jar. Okay, so once you have your images laid out on your rolling tray set, the last step we're going to do is epoxy. So this time when you do your epoxy, we're sealing the vinyl or the picture or whatever you use to put on your rolling tray set. So with the epoxy, we're not going to add any glitter. We're just going to do a clear coat of epoxy. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to mix your epoxy the same exact way we did the first time, except for we're just not going to add that glitter. So as you can see, it's getting cloudy again, and we're going to just keep stirring until it's clear like we did the first time. We're going to do the same exact process as we already did with the glitter epoxy. The only difference here is we will not have any glitter in our epoxy. But other than that, everything is exactly the same. Go ahead and pour your epoxy onto your rolling tray set and spread it around. A lot of people are intimidated by the epoxy mix, but it is not as hard as people make it out to be. I know before I started doing the mix, a lot of people had me scared to try it, but once I did it, I think the first time I might have messed it up, but the second time I got it right. So it's not as hard as everybody makes it seem. If you do need any extra help with your epoxy mix, please leave me a comment below and I will get back to you as soon as I see it, and we will work any kinks you have out. Also, the thicker your image is, you might have to do this step twice. For instance, if you do a picture on picture paper, that's kind of thicker paper, so you will have to do this step twice. You want everything to be as smooth as possible, especially the actual rolling tray. Alright, epoxy is dry and I am completely finished with the rolling tray set. I'm just running the water over the rolling tray so you can see how smooth it came out. This is how you want it. Alright, we are all finished and this is what the rolling tray set looks like. If you have any questions, please comment below and I will get back to you as soon as I see it. Thank you.